Welcome to Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan, and today we're just going to play a little bit of catch-up. There's been a lot of shit going on with me at work and family life and COVID and painting and all this other kind of crap. So that's why you haven't been hearing my voice. So today we're just going to play a little catch-up and see what's going on in our lives and move forward from there.
Well, it's good to have you back. I'm looking forward to hearing kind of what's been going on with you.
No, you don't really want to hear about it. But I'm going to share anyway.
Totally understand.
Going to share anyway. So, oh man, it's been, I don't even know where to begin with things. So I'm really not. So there's been like family things going on. Like I said, work has been just intense lately. And we don't talk about work very much, but holy crap, it's been busy, a lot more than it really should be. So Mike and I are able to telework for our jobs, and they're making sure that we're getting use out of our computers. I did have to travel into DC to get a new computer, so they did upgrade all of our computers because they figured since they didn't give us cameras or mics on our older computers, I found out that I had one of the oldest computers, laptops, in our agency. So they gave me a new one. And it's pretty nice. But now I have a camera, so that means I have to show my face when I go to these stupid meetings. But yeah, it was quite an experience going into Washington with nothing and nobody around. So
did it have a ghost town feel to it?
It kind of did. I get there early enough. Actually, I wasn't there early. I was there at regular time. And no, didn't see any cars parked. Didn't see any people walking around. I take a train, so there was only, I think, 3 of us in our car. But yeah, it was ghost town. It was kind of interesting. See, there was only 2 of us on our floor. It just happened to be that my supervisor happened to come in also. But we were just doing a swap out, so I had it. I was busy just getting my computer ready and my laptop ready and trading those in and just getting a brand new setup. And but it was fun and exciting. It was exhausting because I haven't done that in a while. So remembering where I park and how to drive a car and all that kind of crap, just just kind of like, oh, wait a minute, I make sure I have my ID and all that kind of stuff. And so
now let me ask you this though. So in the world of COVID and when you're riding the train, people were probably all spread out, right?
Yeah. So actually that was really interesting. And I don't know how other mass transit works. So we have individual seats within the box cars because I take a train. So the first thing I noticed, and if I have a picture of it, maybe we'll put it online or something, is the train stop, and they have the whole entire width of the platform has these giant stickers that say "Stand here." So they're all 6 feet away from each other. So there's like hundreds of these little dots all over the place. It was pretty comical when I first got there. Then when you get on the train itself, they had them all broken up and separated. So they had giant stickers this time on each of the seats that says you cannot sit here because of social distancing. And I'm sure they said something a little bit more comical and a little bit more representative, but not, it wasn't just like, hey, don't sit here, don't want to get everybody sick. And then they had them separated through, but it didn't matter because I was on one side and someone was on the opposite side. People weren't talking to each other. We didn't see the conductors except for like once. I don't even think they're looking at ID or your tickets. Probably Amtrak is, but what I take, I don't think they were. I think they just realized if you're getting up that early in the morning going into DC, you probably understand the drill and have your tickets on hand. So that was, that was pretty like eye-opening because it was the first time that I've really gone into a populous area and seeing how they are trying to mitigate things. So I thought that was kind of cool. I knew they would do it, but I thought it would be like, blue tape or masking tape or something or caution tape, and they would just tape it on somehow or something. But no, they got some pretty cool graphics and some neat little stickers, and hopefully my prices don't go up.
No, if this was the normal world, if there were 3 people on the train, one of them would have sat next to you, even though the rest of the car was empty. Just because
Yes,
that's the way people are.
that in parking lots, because that, yeah, exactly, and it really irks the crap out of me because I am the guy who likes to park away from everybody else, and I'm also the asshole that seeks out cars that park far away and I park next to them. So I get it coming, I get it going. So now I won't be the guy who like parks next to somebody who like takes up 4 parking spaces because they don't want anybody to mess up their expensive cars. I I won't do those because that's kind of irrational, and I'm going to expect the response to be irrational also. But yeah, I do it depending on the mood I'm in. But I do like to sit away from each other. Or if it's like the store just opens up and you park somewhere and you come back out and there's like 50 people parked around you. I'm like, come on, man. There's 15 other. So now I got my wife saying it now. So she's starting to realize that people pick on me also because no one parked next to her, but they always park next to me. It's kind of
Right.
weird, but
No, I get it. I totally understand. I'm the same way. I am the park away from people, and then there you come out and like there's that one person that parked next to you, and you can barely get into your car because
exactly,
they had
exactly.
to back they instead of just going into a parking spot normally, they have to do the whole I'm gonna back in so I can get out easy. But granted, everybody's got to wait 20 minutes for me to park, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my
Or they
goodness.
see me coming out of the store and they decide to park in the parking spot right next to me, so I have to wait for them to take their children out or all their returns, and they decide they want to leave their door open so that I can't get into my vehicle. And it's not. I mean, I work with data and analyze data a lot. It is not just random. It's like a lot of times people do this. So I don't know if maybe everybody around the world just has the same problem. So, but I don't know. There'll be 50 parking spaces and someone's going to park right next to me and keep the door open. And I have to like sit there and wait. And there's no other people in the parking lot. It just makes no sense.
Oh man, I feel your pain for sure. So
But
what else has been going on, man?
holy shit. I have actually been traveling. So maybe that's why I don't feel as well as I should. I'm not saying it's COVID or anything like that, but sleeping when I have a chance to sleep, zero motivation to do anything at all except for the last week or so. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of traveling. I've had to take care of family matters in other states that are full of COVID. Um, but we're using our safety precautions, making sure we're not going out or anything like that, especially when I'm taking care of my older mother. But the positive out of it is I've been able to spend time with distant relatives, especially my brothers, that I don't get a chance to see very often. So that has actually been a real joy. If anything out of this crappy experience that we're all living in, that would be a positive. Um, but yeah, just hanging out with them, doing the things that we do, just spending time with family. And it's different than being your nuclear family, but traveling somewhere else, seeing different things, seeing how they interact and how other other communities react to what's going on in the world. It's kind of interesting, and I won't explain where they're from because well, that answer a lot of questions.
So, where in particular did you travel to, if you don't mind me asking? And we
So,
can always.
so I did travel to Georgia. I stayed a lot of time in Georgia, but I was able to go into Florida a few times because we had to for business. And yeah, I got to stand in line and have someone ask me questions about like where I'm from and what I'm doing and things like that. And and see the tent where they want to stick things in my throat or any other place to see if I have any kind of diseases or anything. But yeah, I just kept my mouth shut and didn't say anything, and they just let me go through. So hopefully, I don't pass anything on to everybody. So that's going into Florida from Georgia. There's the checkpoints, and I've been through a couple times, and they're not always open. But we did get uh, stopped a few times for it.
No, yeah, when we just went to Florida, because I was on vacation. We avoided the east coast of Florida, which is where all the COVID hot points are, and went towards Captiva area, which is kind of isolated. And it was interesting because our GPS actually took us around the checkpoint, and we're like, yeah, that's not a very effective checkpoint if you can just get around it by going getting off 2 exits before it and then getting back on 95 after it.
Yep,
You know,
exactly.
not the most strategically effective type of way to do it. But yeah, it's interesting though to see, because like when we were in Georgia, the social distancing, because we actually stopped and spent a night in Savannah on the way back,
Mm-hmm.
was terrible. It was non-existent. I mean, some people were wearing masks, some were not, you know, and then a restaurant we went to, we were like really stressed out because they weren't doing social distancing. But you know, and it was interesting, like parts of Florida before we got, like when we got to like Sanibel and Captiva, they were kind of all hardcore into the social distancing, masks and everything. We only saw one place that wasn't really abiding by it, so we avoided it. But even on the beaches, they had everything marked out and 6 feet apart and everything. So that was reassuring. But it was definitely interesting to see the differences. And coming from Northern Virginia, where we don't have the conversation about masks. Everybody just wears a mask up here.
Which is kind of,
keeps, you know.
no, I was saying, which is kind of funny because my daughter was able to go to Virginia Beach with a friend a few weeks ago, and she said the exact opposite. She said it was frightening to go to Virginia Beach because no one wore a mask anywhere. And she's like, no one was um, doing social distancing. And so they kind of like stayed away from a lot of the stuff that they just wanted to do, like walking along the beach, because too many people, no one's wearing a mask. You go into a restaurant, they walk right back out because the family is pretty concerned about health and everything. So she was frightened. She's just like, nah, it was fun to be away from home, but it wasn't fun because everything that they're trying to impress upon us just isn't being followed in some locations. So I was in Georgia for most of the part, and when I went there a few months ago, it was very lax. It was just like whatever, and I think that was just before the things started getting bad down there. But when I went back this time around, there definitely was a lot more mask wearing, a noticeable amount, and social distancing was taking place also. So I saw some improvements where I went. Daughter did not. Florida was very strict where we were at because that was that's one of the new locations or areas, or what do they call it? Something
Hotspots,
yeah, epicenters. So yeah, needless to say, it was pretty stressful. But they were trying at least. So that was cool and good. But hey, we see enough and hear enough about all this crap going on. So let's move on to something else because this is just depressing and people don't want to hear it.
Right? No kidding. You know, one of the cool things about my trip was I actually got to stop at a hobby store in Savannah, Georgia, called Morningstar Games and Comics. And it was pretty nice. It was a cute little store, mostly focused on comic books, and they had a ton of Warhammer stuff with some other board games mixed in. You know, it's kind of the standard type thing that goes on now, is that you have the Games Workshop stuff, and then they have a dabbling into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and so you get a few Reaper minis, a few Whiskies minis, and then a lot of board games and comics. And so that's a lot of different stores that I see. Not that it's a generic store or anything. It was very nice, and I enjoyed going in and interacting. I bought a pack of push fit sequiturs to play with and work on color schemes and such. And so try to contribute a little bit to the local gaming scene. But it's also kind of in a weird way too, just like everyone else. When we go visit your hobby place or Games Garrison, and they have basically all of the gaming areas cordoned off. It's like, no, you can't get back, and it really kind of shortens the store. It was just an interesting experience. But Anyways, I digress. Anyway, congratulations to Morningstar Games that they're still open and running. It was a nice store to be to, and I really enjoyed my. I didn't get a ton of time there, but I did enjoy the time that I had there.
Oh, cool. Um, no, I haven't been back to my stores. I think from the last time that we went there and just talked for a little bit that last month or so. Um, I just, I have enough crap going on, even hobby wise, that I haven't had a need to go into. I think all that will change tomorrow when GW finally releases the last few remaining boxes of Indominus, the ninth edition 40K box set. Since everybody else in the world seems to have their copies, except for a few that don't. I've already seen like entire painted armies and everything, but I'll head out tomorrow and check them out and see what they have. I have half a box of Space Marines that will be painting black because I just don't feel like painting any other color right now. Because I've been painting so many uh, BattleTech figures, and I've been doing my 30K Dark Angels, so I'm just gonna spray paint everything black and throw them into my 40K army after I dry brush some green on them, since that makes me a happy painter. It doesn't necessarily make me a better painter, but it does make me happier.
Hey, that's the end game right there.
Yeah.
Is that it makes you happy. Now, so you were able to split a box with a Necron.
I was
player,
actually,
right?
yes, I was lucky enough that when they made the announcement, I happened to be in the store, so I went ahead and said, "Hold the box for me, and if you can, just split it because apparently people split games. I have never. This is the first time I've ever split a box. I usually keep both sides, but Necrons, I've sold all of my Necrons throughout the years that I've owned. So I decided that I just didn't. They're just going to sit around. I was like, I'm really just going to be a Space Marine guy. Maybe Chaos or something. But I was like, yeah, I don't need the Necron. So actually, somebody needed their Necrons, needed it or wanted them. So I'm like, hey, I'm cool with that, man. Knock yourself out. So I was able to split it. We'll see how how it all works out tomorrow.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm not getting the box set. It's not in my price range, and I don't game anymore. I don't have a need for an army. I am going to grab some of the models individually out of it, though, because I do think there are a few just incredible models in there. Like,
Well, there are, and that's why I wanted the Space Marine figures because they're really nice. I do like the sculpts. I guess since I started talking about what's going on my desk a little bit, let's swing it back to you, see what you're doing, and then I'll go swing back around and fill in the blanks of some of the stuff that I've been doing hobby
oh, sure.
wise.
Okay, cool. Well, kind of on my desk right now, I still have a 75 millimeter Leonardo Ninja Turtle. I've been working on. I've just kind of been taking my time on him, working on him here and there. I'm enjoying the process of painting him a lot. It's much different because of how big he is. And also his position is somewhat odd. Like the posing of him is a little bit odd. So it's I have it in pieces, like in sub-assemblies, but I have to constantly check back onto where it fits in to like work on light and stuff like that. So it's been a good but unique challenge for me. I'm also working on. I have my ideas nailed down and started for the Massive Voodoo / Mr. Lee's astronaut competition, and so I don't want to go into the details of them per se. One of them's based on Spaceballs, and another one is based on. I have really gotten into watching acrylic canvas painters on YouTube lately, and so part of it was trying to look for inspiration for anything, and actually one of them inspired me for an idea for one of those astronauts, and so I'm going to try some canvas painting techniques on the background of one of them, just for fun. I'm not a canvas painter, but what the hell, might as well. And then the last one, I'm working on a piece that I want to submit to ReaperCon's online convention and to Heavier Metals Ed Banger, which is coming up here in September. It is the miniature is called Sclatty Wave Splitter. She was a ReaperCon exclusive from last year. That when I have a swag problem, as you and I both know, that when these when these conventions sell their swag bags online, I have a tendency to buy them. I love swag bags. Don't know what I don't know why. It doesn't feel like a convention if you don't get a swag bag. But anyways, it was an awesome model. It was actually my favorite Reaper miniature that I've seen so far, and so I've been enjoying painting her. I'm doing a little bit of a different type of diorama. I sent you the pictures. We can post the work in project pictures too on Instagram. Of I took a dollar store champagne glass and broke off the front of it and kind of build a sandy beach diorama in it with a couple of palm trees, and I'm going to do a water like a resin pour at the front of it to have water kind of spilling out of the broken areas of the glass. Just something different, something fun. After a lot of, I would say a good 70 to 80% of miniature painting winds up being kind of in this, I don't want to say grim dark style, but a lot of it is darker. Most of us paint monsters and evil things, etc. And pushing contrast really does, work those darks and lights, etc. And so this was something that's just a little bit more fun, fanciful, not really serious, not taking it really seriously, just enjoying kind of the process and looking at and not going, oh my gosh, this shadow isn't dark enough. Because you know what? It's a woman standing on the beach. There's not going to be a lot of shadow, because the sunlight's going to be directly on her. And I will say this, I paid a lot of attention to this when I was on the beach a few weeks ago, looking at people and seeing is there a ton of shadows when the sun is right over you? And they're just not. The shadows it's almost like if you were going to do a realistic beach scene of a person, most of the shadows are going to be kind of like black lined as opposed to these drastic, shots and contrast, etc. But then, you have the other side of it, which of course we're painting in smaller scale, so you do need it in order to use contrast, in order to make miniatures pop, etc. But kind of just trying to figure out the balance between those two things. But that's neither here nor there. It's a fun project. I'm enjoying the heck out of that one and working on it. Hopefully I will be at the point of doing the resin pour at the beginning of the week, next week, and I'll let everybody know how that goes. So, but what else are you working on?
Got back into printing. I was having some problems with some of my settings, and I wasn't very happy with the resin that I was using. So I got a new resin and recalibrated it, and I've been getting some fairly good prints. So I've been moving forward with all my BattleTech guys and testing out some schemes with them. I've noticed online that a lot of people that are in our little BattleTech universe have been, at least the more experienced painters have been doing a lot of modulation, and you can imagine modulation is pretty difficult in these little guys. So I've been practicing that, and that's been a lot of fun. So I have some green guys, and I have some gray and blue guys that I've been working on, and I've been doing like some loaded brush stuff. Been practicing with that a little bit, just actually not practicing, just playing around with it, and I really enjoyed doing that because that's more of a finesse technique. So it doesn't just allow me, just to slop on some paint and not worry about it, but something that takes my time and try to enjoy the actual painting process. Completely different than, like I said earlier, spray painting my guys black when I get them assembled here in the next couple of days.
It's really funny. You and I go through similar phases, and I've been playing with loaded brush a lot too lately. Not on a miniature, but like just kind of practicing it on other things, etc., and just trying it. When I don't feel the inspiration to paint, I've been playing with just trying it on paper. But it's just funny how a lot of our things go back and forth. Wind up mirroring each other without talking to each other about it.
When I don't feel like painting or not motivated to paint, I will go into my pile of sprues and start to assemble or clean off mold lines and stuff like that. So it still keeps me busy, but it allows me to at least move forward on some things. So I have an awful lot of Space Marines that are sitting there waiting to be painted. and we'll see if we throw them into the mix and just spray paint those black too. Uh, so speaking of black, my 30 case Dark Angels, they're all spray painted black, but now I have to do all the highlights in other colors. So I'm doing those assembly wise. So I have like 40 or 50 of them ready to go. Most of them have the primary colors already put on, so now I just need to put a little bit of finesse stuff. And with these new guys, I will be doing some weathering, which I haven't done in the past. Usually I just keep them kind of clean, like they just came out of the shower. But I decided this time to make them a little bit more gruff since it is 30K and things are a little bit more nasty in that universe. So doing that. And I was playing Magic for a while. I got into the physical Magic game for a little bit, but COVID has really made that difficult. So I punched out of that. I do play online a little bit, but I've really enjoyed the last week or so of just painting and doing some assembling with my Battletech and my Space Marines. So I have not been playing Magic because it is a soul suck, and it's a whole nother conversation. Because this is not what we call listening to Magic cry, cry show. Yeah,
Exactly. That's all right. You
but
can
it is
still
a fun
talk
game.
about whatever you want. We're not.
I enjoy. I really do enjoy it, and I notice that I go back to my old um, playing, I guess, schemes or I don't even know what they're called. So any of you Magic people out there know what they're called when you use a type of deck. I noticed that I lean back to that way of playing, which I don't know how to explain it. But it's fun. I've always been a black and green player. Experimenting a little bit with like black and red because that's been a lot of fun. But I don't have to think much about it. I just click the buttons and it tells me if I'm supposed to do something or not, or if I don't have the right amount. Because if I was to do it by hand, I would have forgotten half the crap that I'm supposed to do. So makes computer games make things much better and funner. So really, that has been it hobby-wise. I think.
Have
Let's
you purchased
see.
anything new?
No, I am either printing little BattleTech guys out, or I am painting all my old stuff. But I am waiting for the 9th edition box when it comes out. It'll be tomorrow. I'll start putting some of those guys together. I'm looking forward to those. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. There's a lot of details in there, so that should keep me busy for the next couple of
I was
years.
gonna say right there. That's 60. You didn't get 61. You just got the Space Marine, so it's still a big increase to the pile of shame for sure. So
Yeah.
I actually have made some purchases, nothing major, but for Father's Day, and it took a little while to get them because of all the COVID stuff, but I ordered Rosemary and Company smushing brushes. Now, that may not make sense. What the hell is a smushing brush? But it is basically a domed brush. It's if you see a makeup brush, they're actually pretty similar to some of the. I don't know. I'd have to get my teenager down here. She'd explain the different types of makeup brushes. But anyways, it's kind of a dome top, short bristled dome top. These are the same type of brushes that Artist Opus D series is, and that's their dry brush series for Artist Opus. I can't afford Artist Opus brushes. Sorry, Artist Opus. But the Rosemary and Company version of these are substantially cheaper, and they were also a Father's Day gift from my wife, which was nice of her. But one of the things that I've been, because I actually enjoy dry brushing a lot when I do like the scenery and stuff, and even sometimes I will, after I Zenithal prime, and I'll throw a dark gray wash on a miniature and then dry brush it to kind of do a light sketch. Which is a video I learned that from Vince Venturella's Hobby Cheaty Patey Your Very Best Mini. These are really nice. One of the tricks to them, though, is that they're great for stippling, too, is that there is, when you buy the Artist Opus brushes, you get this little thing called a dampening pad, and basically you put a little bit of water in it. And as you're going through the process of dry brushing, you kind of dip the brush back in it and take paint off. It's almost like thinning your paints before you dry brush, which I know that's a technique that Roman LaPlante uses, because it actually will help to decrease some of the chalkiness of the dry brush. Because that's one of the big drawbacks about dry brushing is when you dry brush like larger open surfaces, you have a tendency to get a chalky buildup. But if you are using things like the dampening pad and just kind of reinvigorating the paint that's on on the dry brush and taking it off kind of again and then dry brushing more, it actually helps avoid and kind of almost gives you more of an airbrushed feeling as opposed to a chalky dry brush feeling. So it's kind of interesting mastering that. Since I don't have the artist open things, I made my own dampening pad with some sponge from a blister pack and little makeup jar that I stole from my teenager. I'd feel bad about that, but when I can get my dang hairdryer back for when I glaze would be nice. We'll have that conversation about stealing. Anyways, with that being said, I also decided to venture out and try. I did not know Kids Logic made Robotech miniatures, and so I actually got a Skull Leader 1 Kids Logic miniature. I'm still waiting on it, but it's kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to. I remember when I was younger that they used to release these kind of smaller scale model kits for Robotech miniatures, and I used to buy them all the time when I was a kid. And so I'm looking forward to playing with that and seeing what I could do with it. And of course, it's Skull Leader 1, so gotta grab one of those, right?
Yeah, I've been tracking them for a while now, and I just haven't purchased. If I didn't have my 3D printer to make kind of the same things, I would definitely have a full set of those because they are pretty darn good, and they're beautiful sculpts when you finally get them. They did a fantastic job, and the quality is pretty high actually. Little pricey, but not as pricey as what our normal hobby things are. It's just, I don't see it being played as a game or anything like that. They'll sit and they're just really just static pieces. So you'll spend a little bit more time painting it and making it look good because it's just going to sit on a counter somewhere or sit in a case
Now,
somewhere.
I will
It's
say this though. I didn't think the prices were that high. They were 10 bucks, 10, $15 a piece, depending on what you got. The Skull Leader 1 was only $10. But here's a trick, though. I made the mistake. I ordered direct from Kids Logic. I should have purchased it from somewhere like in the U.S., like Big Bad Toy Store has a huge selection. Actually, they have more on their website than is available on Kids Logic's website, which is kind of strange.
Yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few distributors here in the States that have them, and you might pay you might pay $1 or $2 more.
But you'll pay
but
half the shipping costs, though.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
That makes a huge deal. But one other thing I was going to add that I forgot is that I tried. Part of also my Father's Day gift was some other brushes as well with the Rosemary and Company thing, and I actually ventured in. Most miniature painters, when they recommend Rosemary and Company, recommend the Series 33 watercolor brushes.
Mm-hmm.
I ventured into the Series 8 as well. I purchased a Series 8 number 3, and I have to tell you, Series 1, the Series 33 is closer to a Winsor & Newton, right? It's more like that's kind of, if you wanted to have another sable brush comparison, that's probably a good comparison point, is that the sizes match similarly, the brushes act the same. The Series 8 is very similar, not quite as fat-bellied, but it's actually a lot more similar to the Raphael 8404s. And I'm digging them. I'm enjoying painting with it. It's got a great belly on it, a nice straight lines. Now, like one of the reasons why, and we've had Jason Craze on the show, one of the reasons why the Baumwick igniter brushes are great is because they're designed not to really have a huge belly on them. They're straight lined. The goal was to create a good way, like nice crisp edge highlights, etc. Because of the way the brush is. If a more rounded brush, when you do like sidelining on a miniature, you're going to get a little bit of overspill, etc. And so that aspect of it's nice. So basically all these brushes that we ever talk about, Rosemary and Company, Artist Opus, Broken Toad, Raphael, igniter Bimelicks. My God, we can go on and on and on. Even Citadel brushes. They all have their purposes. And part of it is the artist. And I will say that when we originally discussed, I was kind of a negative Nancy on the Rosemary and Company brushes, but they've kind of grown on me. And so,
I still dig in mine. I love it. I know we have the game, and I have the Game Envy ones, but I can't remember who makes theirs. But I love those things, and my Rosemary Company are pretty awesome also. So those are my two go tos at this point. Every once in a while, I'll go back to one of my old school Citadel ones. I think it's their standard
mm-hmm.
brush
Oh,
and
that's an
detail
old.
brush.
Those are old. That's yellow
The
and orange
the
handle.
old ones, yeah. And man, that I don't know why, but the bristles are still pretty good, and it still has a decent point on it. Now I won't do my super detail work with it, but for my general painting, man, those are awesome.
But anyways, I'm looking forward to playing more with them. I just, I'm enjoying experimenting with them. I'm actually contemplating getting some Da Vinci brushes because, what the heck, try them
Oh,
out.
I like my Da Vinci
Yeah.
brushes too. So.
Right. And it's. I find I'm using more. I will say that I'm more and more using synthetic brushes for over 50% of the work I'm doing on a miniature. Especially metal miniatures, because putting sable hair across bare metal or against metal, not a good idea. And so I find I'm using more and more using synthetic brushes, but finding out strategically I'm using my Kolinsky sable brushes better.
So since you were talking about brushes, that brings me up to Kickstarter. So I happened to get an email that some of my stuff is ready or will be ready pretty soon. So I figured this might be a good time just to talk about some things that we might have got purchased or ordered. I don't, not definitely or supported on Kickstarter. Do you have anything that you've done, or do you want me just to go right into what I've had?
I can be pretty quick about it. I'm currently backing the Mini Masterworks carrying case for the Studio X. Yeah, I love that thing. It's gonna help my house. I mean, even my wife was like, "Yeah, that would be nice to have, so you can put all your crap in one place." I'm waiting on the. Supposedly these are being shipped soon. The Succubus series, done by they used to be Kabuki. Now there's someone else. Still waiting on the Nocturna end paint stuff. They've kind of gone radio silent. That should have been delivered by now, but we're still waiting here. And then the other one that I have is the Ouroboros miniature twins, and we had Tim on the show. That was awesome. I'm really looking forward to getting those. And that's the big model and a little girl. So, but anyways, that's what I have.
See, I'm still waiting. Well, I think in the anything that is any Kickstarter projects that have finished within probably September of last year on are pretty much going to be delayed. So my big one from last year was BattleTech, the clan invasion, and they keep they're doing a very very good job at updating us with everything that's going on. So that's not the issue. It's just you had factories shut down at one point, which is impacting other Kickstarters that I have. But I think that's just something that the supporters are just going to have to just bite their tongue on, because everything everywhere has kind of like come to a standstill, or is just now starting to get back online. And so we're going to be delayed a little bit longer, because that should have been, if everything was perfect in like March, April, we should have started getting our first wave of stuff in, and it just hasn't happened. But they also had an awful lot of backers, so they have an awful lot of stuff they have to do. So I think that's just going to take a little time. The ghost brushes, I'm getting to try brushes at some point. That has also been a project that has been delayed because of what's going on overseas. I did. I think you might have brought up somewhere about the Forgotten Chapters, which are the decals for writing or I
Yeah,
can't
we had
even
a
think of what
Facebook case, a Facebook question about
yeah.
it, and
So they're water slide transfers that are really darn good. And I wish I had the guy's name, but I think he's going to open up a store also. So he has some really, really cool things because I can't write, I can't do any kind of script or anything like that. So these water slide transfers are going to be freaking awesome. Just to throw them on whatever I have, if I have some scrolls or have some purity seals or something like that, these are made for that. And I can use it in other things too. But they look really cool. I guess he's just by printing them at home, or maybe he's got a company to print them out for him. So he's been doing some tests. They seem to be doing pretty well. So those should be sending out pretty soon, hopefully. And I backed the Game Envy Desk Wizard for organizing because I noticed I just put my paints in front of me because I don't have a very large desk, but I do have a dedicated desk. So when I'm doing a particular project, I pull those paint colors out and keep them out. But I like organizers also. Those should be maybe in a couple months or so, probably. It seemed to do pretty good. It was they made 41,000. I don't know. I can't remember what their goals were. I could put my tablet. It's got a little notch for me to put my tablet on there so I can watch videos because that's what I normally do. I don't have a desktop. I have a different desk for that. And I have a place to put all my paints and my brushes and everything. I have like 30 of them already, but why not? Why not put some more money towards this stuff? Because it might work. So I might give it a try and see how it works. I think it's going to help out a little bit with my organization and just more storage area and more storage stuff. And we'll go from there and see what happens. But those are the big ones right now. I can't think of anything else. I'm imagining that a lot of companies are just holding back a little bit until they get a firm grasp of where things are going around the
well, I
world.
think a lot of
But
stuff is transferring over to STLs too, and so instead of buying miniatures, you're buying Kickstarter files. It seems.
yeah, probably. I haven't. I think I've only seen a few. Patreon has a ton of them, and I think we discussed that earlier. But there's some really cool stuff you can get on Patreon if you're doing a 3D thing. Um, like I said, it's so overwhelming. There's so many cool things out there. I have a backlog of years worth of stuff to print, and but someday I'll get to it. Until I don't even know. I don't even know when I'm gonna get to this stuff. It's definitely it's bad enough to buy gray, but now I can just print my own gray out. So if it was money, that would be cool, but it's not. It's not.
Hey, man, I'm just waiting to see some progress on the fabulous Custodes.
Someday I have them in a box. I have them. They are cleaned, if I recall correctly. I have them in a labeled box that I have that, and they're on my to do shelf, not my get out of my sight shelf. So, but they're near the end of it though, since since I think I have some other crap shoved in that box too. Because now I have my sisters. I have my like four freaking BattleTech boxes. Because every time I open them up, I'm like, holy crap! I can't believe how much stuff I have. I gotta paint all this stuff. It's like, let's bring out the spray paint and dry brush and get going. So I'll try that little technique thing. Maybe just keep them a little bit more wet or something like that, and dry brush that way. But I don't mind the chalkiness look. Sometimes it looks kind of cool, especially with like old metal and things like that. So I'll I'll definitely give that a try. But I have my boxes of Space Marines that I need to get through, but they're all cleaned and ready to go, separated into each of their little boxes. Because I do sub-assemblies, and it just makes it easier for me. So I want to make sure the whole model is painted when I put it together. Because if he falls and breaks, then you'll be able to see that it was painted and not just a big blob of gray.
Nice. Oh man. All right. So that's kind of all we have for this show today, I think, right? With that being said, let's throw out a couple of quick announcements. First, the Nova Open Charitable Foundation raffles are still live. You can go to the novaopenfoundation.org. Check them out. They've got some great stuff provided by some of the best artists in the world that you can buy raffle tickets and keep your fingers crossed and hope to win. That'll also, your purchases will help ensure that the Nova Open happens again next year, and that the Nova Open Charitable Foundation will be able to reach its goals and help groups like Doctors Without Borders. Also, our friend Dutch Adams, we mentioned this in the previous one. He's opened a game store in Manassas, and it's called Crimson Fields Gaming. The hours are Monday through Friday, and it's 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this time, I have an address for you. It is 9207 Enterprise Court, E1 in Manassas Park, Virginia. So if you have the opportunity, you're in Northern Virginia, and you want to check out a gaming store, help Dutch out, stop by. You also check out his Facebook page for Crimson Field Gaming, because they have a giveaway for an Indominus box set going on right now. So, it's a little lucrative prize thing there going on. I hope I win. Kathy, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Um,
Awesome.
First and foremost, before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the hobby, how have you been holding up in this world of COVID-19 craziness? Is everything going okay?
Well, yeah. It, it's frustrating not to feel like I can't go out and do the normal things, but everybody's feeling that. But for me, we've been working at home painting miniatures for years, for 15, at least 15 years. So now I just have more time to work, I guess, to work and watch movies because I'm not going
Right.
out and doing things with my friends or going out to dinner or running errands like I used to. So for me, it's not as bad as it is for other people, like the friends I have who have to go into their jobs every day. I feel bad for them, especially the ones that work at places like grocery stores. I worry about them.
Right. It's a tough scenario too. There's not only do you have the disease, but you also have the whole mask debate and all that other stuff going on outside
It's
as
a
well.
pretty
So
mad world
it's
right now.
which is so good that we have a hobby that we can kind of escape to. So could you give me a little bit of your origin or all of your origin story for the hobby, but however you want to go. I'm curious as how you got into this crazy world of miniature painting.
I was not bitten by a radioactive spider. Uh,
Nice.
I blame my brother ultimately for getting me into the hobby because it was he who, with his paper out money, bought all of the D&D stuff when we were kids. He bought the first miniatures I ever saw, which were the little lead ones from. It had to have been before Rel Partha even. They were just these tiny little lead. You had your fighter, you had your barbarian, the thief, the dwarf, you know, and he started painting them. And maybe 1992 is when I painted my first miniature. I painted about 6 miniatures, and then I didn't paint again for 10 years until I moved in with my husband. And he was playing Blood Bowl with his friends. I didn't know anybody in Chicago. So I'm like, I like games. Teach me this game. I'm going to play. And you're an artist because at the time he was a 2D artist, he was a painter. And I said, why are your models not painted? You know you can paint these, right? I said, can I paint them? I'll paint them for you. And it was his Lizardman Blood Bowl team. And I got like halfway through them, and he was like, that looks like fun. Do you mind if I paint some of them? Like they're your models. Uh, I said, just be careful. I'm going to warn you. Painting miniatures can be addictive. And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah. But here we are, 15 or so years later, painting miniatures for a living.
Nice, nice. And now, how in this situation, the lizard men were there. So fast forward to now, what kind of what brings you to paint? Like, is there anything in particular that you're looking for, or what kind of catches your attention and it makes you say, I want to paint that?
I don't know that there's any one I guess crisp details. If the details are really crisp, it could be the most weird and whimsical, actually weird and whimsical, creepy cute kind of things are things that I especially like. As far as Chaos Gods, Nurgle is my favorite because I feel like the Nurgle models have a lot more scope for doing weird, outlandish, whimsical stuff. Like the one I did in my stream recently, I painted the Lord of Plagues, and when I when I got the model out of the little bag that all the pieces were in, I realized that it was missing a head. So, and on stream, I'm assembling this on stream and cleaning it and everything. And I'm like, well, I don't have a head for this. I guess I'll be improvising. And they're like, you should make it a pumpkin. Like, okay, okay, I will sculpt a pumpkin head for him out of green stuff. And it worked. I mean, it looked like it belonged there. And you can do weird stuff like that with Nurgle. That would maybe not have worked so well with a Space Marine, for instance.
Yeah,
So,
right. The Space Marines kind of have that set aesthetic. Yeah, put a pumpkin. Although I would like to see it, though. I can't lie. I'd like to see that. So kind of that's very cool. You like from that Nurgle thing. It sounds like that you like to be able to take it anywhere you want to go with it, whether it's due to a lack of a head or if you get inspired and say, you know what, this Nurgle beast really needs a head.
oh yes.
Or, you know, that's a lot of fun. That's also what makes this hobby so great is that, you know, I always see people like going, oh, this isn't supposed to look like that in the lore. And I'm like, yeah, but I spent the money on it, so I'm going to do what I want with it, you know?
It's my model.
Right.
It's my universe, ultimately.
Exactly. Exactly. So do you have kind of a standard approach that you use when you start out painting a model, besides just, you know, necessarily, you know, clean, assemble, prime? Is there something like I don't want to say, I hate the word ritual because that's not really what I mean, but kind of like a standard operating procedure when you start the process?
I kind of do, but I do switch it up occasionally, just sometimes for no reason. Like just actually this morning I was thinking, what if I start a model this way instead of this other way? But mainly my standard operating procedure is I like to brush on my Stynylrez primer. That's the primer that I have. Uh, I don't use an airbrush and I don't do rattle can priming. I suck at that. I always over spray shit. So I just brush it on. You know, I'm not painting huge armies, so I'm not concerned with, you know, do I have to paint 50 Space Marines or, you know, orcs or whatever. So I have maybe 5 or 6 guys in front of me. I just assembled them. I brush on the primer. Usually it's a dark one first. Sometimes it's a light one first. Uh, if it's a light one, then I'll do a wash to get dark shadows into the recesses, and then maybe do a dry brush over it. And I call it my half-ass zenithal, this dry brushing that I do, because usually I'll use a darker color. I seldom use black. I'll use a dark brown. I'll mix black with terracotta because Stynylrez has a crap ton of different colored primers. I'll use there's one that's green, but it's like a really sort of a gray green. And then I'll take a mid-tone, you know, like a medium gray color and dry brush that. So it's sort of a mid value. It's really kind of like a value sketch. I call it my half-ass zenithal because I don't use an airbrush, so I had to figure out how to do that kind of thing just with a brush. And then I do a really light gray or, you know, off-white or whatever color, a lighter color. It doesn't even matter if it's gray, really. It's the value of the color that matters, you know, between light and dark. It's not the color that necessarily matters. So I have a dark, I have a medium value, and I have a lighter value, my 3 values. And it's dry brush. And the dry brush picks out the details, and that's what I'm most interested in. But I also use very translucent paints usually, which means that you'd be able to see some of those values between light and dark after I put the paint on. And sometimes sometimes I'll make it more opaque and sometimes not, but that's why I set my models up like that, is because I use more translucent paints. It's really not going to matter if your paints are really opaque and you're doing the flat base coat sort of technique. Then you're just wasting your time with the zenithal or whatever, because you're just
Right.
covering it
No,
up.
I've always wondered that. I see people go through the process of doing that start out with the zenithal highlighting and then start putting opaque paints on, and I'm like, well, I guess you could have it in your memory of where you had all the lights and
Yeah,
stuff, but now they're all gone, you know.
it does help, and I've done that myself. I've covered up some of my values with opaque paint, but as you're painting, sometimes you have that opportunity to glaze a little or to do a little ink in one area. Maybe this area is opaque and maybe this other area is more translucent, or you want to do glazes, or you want to do a ink wash or use a contrast paint or something on that area. So you've got the whole model, you can figure all these things out. So it's almost an exercise rather than a necessity. You're just kind of doing an exercise. It's a little practice, which is always a
Practice.
good thing.
Absolutely, and I really am glad to hear that's very somewhat similar to the way I do it too. I do always do a dry brush of the details, especially like if I have to do something that's a really, really small model. But yeah, that always seems to help bring out. I don't know. It's just always easier to paint than with that dry brush on. So I could totally appreciate you doing that for sure.
Yeah, and when people use an airbrush for that sort of thing, they're pretty much doing the same thing, just with an airbrush instead of, a dry brush.
Hmm. Right, very true. And now, have you switched over to the makeup brush world of dry brushing? Because I know there's a huge like now a lot of momentum for using makeup brushes for dry brushing. Do you use a kind of standard paintbrush, or have you switched over to makeup brushes?
I actually I have a few old dry brushes. I have a couple of the old Citadel ones, and I have one that's, oddly enough, it's a Games and Gears, one that I got at Adepticon in the swag bag, and I love it. I did a stream where I experimented with using old brushes, using, chopped up old brushes, using, I don't remember if I had a makeup brush then. I used the Citadel ones, and then I used this Games and Gears one, and I hadn't used it before, and it turned out to be, of all of the stuff that I was trying, the best thing for the job. But I haven't tried a makeup brush, I don't think. Jim, my husband, uses makeup brushes uh, for dry brushing, and he loves it. So I I suppose once my brushes are ruined enough where they don't work anymore, you know, then I'll do that.
Nice. Now, speaking of streaming, so when you started doing Twitch, what kind of made that decision for you to start teaching painting? Like what was the impetus behind teaching painting?
Well,
There we go.
it's funny. The only reason I was streaming is because I have a podcast with a couple friends of mine on Sunday nights, and I figured that since I had access to our podcast Twitch channel during the week, I would just paint. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in the afternoon, I paint on that channel. And oh my goodness, I think I need to close a window. I just had a loud sound here. So, um, anyways, so that was my that was my reason for streaming. I was like, well, I'm going to be sitting here painting anyways. I might as well stream. And I started out doing it only twice a week. But as I got more comfortable with it, I was actually pretty anxious about it to start out with, to tell you the truth, because I'm not a teacher. I'm not one of those people that teaching comes naturally to, or explaining my process. Um, and also all of the gear and everything that goes with streaming I was still learning how to work that stuff. So I was nervous to start out with. And once I got used to it, and I was getting helpful feedback from people, then I felt like I could increase it to 4 days a week. And it's been so much fun. And while I still feel like I'm not a great teacher, I talk through my process while I'm doing it. It's more free form. It's not like a structured kind of class thing. I can't do structured class sort of things. I tried making some tutorial videos. It was very difficult for me. But in talking through my process live, I have learned more about my process. It makes me conscious of what I'm doing. It makes me more conscious of the choices that I'm making when I'm working on a model, which is an unintended and helpful benefit.
Right. You kind of answered the next question. Is what I was going to ask you is how does it impact your painting? So you've become basically more aware of your how you paint, really, in the
Yeah.
decisions you make.
And
Now, do you?
once I'm more aware of that, it's easier for me to remember that and apply it the next time I paint.
Nice. Now, what is the channel's name?
It's called More Than Dice, a podcast.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure that we have links to that in the show notes so people can also check that out as well and check out your Twitch times. And so, let me ask you this question too. Who are some of your biggest influences? It can either be in the miniature painting world or art world, wherever. People kind of go all over the place with the answer to this question. So, wherever you take us will be awesome.
Oof. Uh, I must think. Well, I mean, my brother was my inspiration just to start out miniature painting, and his enthusiasm for painting models and for everything Warhammer at the time is what kind of drew me into that universe and got me excited about it. And when I saw Jim's Blood Bowl team, I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I can I can do this. I can do this now. And then I got a Blood Bowl team, and then we discovered Cool Mini or Not, the forum, and that is just seeing all the people posting their work on Cool Mini or Not on the forum there was a huge influence. Just because I thought I was pretty good. I wasn't. I sucked. Um, but I thought I was good until I looked at things that other people were doing, and I was like, you can do that with bases? I never even thought you could like build up bases and then in the forums you're finding out the material that people are using for these kind of things. So many people were so helpful with their knowledge, and but even now there are people uh, that I'm inspired by, like Kirill Kanev. He's he is one of my favorite painters, and I love that he does that super realistic non-metallic metal, with the really chromy reflections.
Oh my
And
Lord, yes.
he does these just stunning freehand designs, just these tiny little freehand designs, and they're so intricate. And I know that most of the models that he's working with are larger scale, but it's still incredible to have all this detail, and not just patterns, but painting in the texture of material, like worn fabric and worn leather, and just all those little details are things he pays attention to, and that's the kind of thing that I aspire to.
His Instagram page is a rabbit hole for me. I have to like
Mm-hmm.
put myself on a timer, and I'm like, okay, can only look at it for 30 minutes because I'll sit there and look at his pieces, and yeah, some of them look like they're going to start talking to you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they're crazy for sure. Awesome. Well, that's it. Now, so that's kind of an excellent point too. That even for you, who's a absolutely fantastic artist, there are influences out there that you look at their work and go, wow, like I want to do that too. And so that's kind of neat for our listeners to hear that even when you've obtained a high level of painting, there's always room to grow, always room
There's
to try new things.
there's always room for learning new things and realizing that even if you are good and you feel like you're good, you feel like you have a handle on things, there's people you can learn from. There's ideas that you may not have considered. So I'm always looking for the new ideas.
So let me the kind of in this vein too. Um, what is the most kind of recent situation where you've looked at something and gone, oh, that is an awesome idea. I have to try that. I know for me, it's been I see all these resin pours, and I've seen all these amazing. Like I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try to do some form of water scene now. So
Oh,
that's
I
kind
was
of on my
just talking to someone about that today, believe it or not, on my stream.
oh nice.
He's he's teaching one of the Reaper Online classes, and he's teaching a class in water effects. And so we were talking about different water effects in the resin pour and how I've just been really chicken about trying it.
Oh, I feel your pain. I do. I'm the same way.
I said I
Yeah,
really need to just screw up my courage and, get some resin and, make some crappy base I don't care about just to try it so that if I ruin it, at least it's not something I've invested a ton of time in.
right. And you learn. Every mistake you make is a learning experience.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, it's funny. It's a lot. Water and ice and snow seem to be big challenges for miniature painters. Like getting a realistic effect. You either get a foam look on the snow, and you're like, why does it look like party foam instead of snow? Or
I need
those are
to,
all.
yeah, snow is on my list of things to do, snow bases. I may have done a couple snow bases way back when I was, in the first few years of painting miniatures, and they weren't that good. But I haven't done any since then. Not any. And I have one base, not that anyone can see. I was looking behind me at this base that's waiting for me to get some paint on it, and it's going to be a wintry snow scene, and so that's the one that I'll be practicing on, and hopefully my practice will not look terrible.
Well, if you take pictures of it, we can link it in our Instagram page so we can like and put it out as you make progress. We can let people, the listeners, see it too. And it's always a learning thing to watch people's progress as they go along. I always find it, even in some of it's even better than a step by step. And you know what I mean? Like when people put out a
I
step by. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I always post my work in progress on all my projects on my Instagram.
All right, awesome. We're definitely going to put a link to that if that's okay in our show notes so that
Sure.
people can follow you because that's I don't know the world of miniature painting has gotten so insanely better over the last few years, even over the last few years itself. So along those lines too, since you started uh, back in the early 90s and coming back into it 10 years later, what are some of the kind of the changes that you've noticed that have really impacted the miniature painting world?
I think social media is the biggest thing. Just Cool Mini or not, as much as that changed, you know, how what I was doing because I could see all these amazing things that other people were doing and I could strive towards, trying to figure out how they did it or just ask them how they did it and they would tell me, you know, and then I could try it myself. Uh, that was huge at the time. But now, with this explosion of Facebook groups and Discords and Twitch and YouTube tutorials, there's so much information out there. All you really have to do is search whatever you mean. You could search lava bases and you would find a ton of hobby references.
Yeah, it's an amazing world. I think about it. I started out um, late 80s. Then I did it for a couple of years, and then fast forward 25 years later, after a 25-year plus break, and my son found my models and got back into the hobby 4 or 5 years ago. Um, it's just crazy. I remember picking up a white dwarf and looking at it and like reading their thing, going, "Oh, well, what the hell's an ink wash?" Nobody explained what an ink wash was. They just did them back in the day, and so now you go and you can buy a pot of wash, and I'm like, "What is this? Liquid magic?" You know?
Oh, I love the washes. I remember when they first came out, it was so much fun to play with those. They really help things. I'm a little sad that everybody's go-to is Nuln Oil because I feel like it works really great for some things, but for other things it just desaturates them and makes them look dirty. So I urge people to experiment with the other colors of washes besides just black.
Thank you for saying that. I am so in that club that actually none oil. I don't have it. I got it kind of like it spilled and I went good riddance, because it does. I feel like the same way when you put a wash on. It's like almost a dirty feel to it at the end of it, and like that's
Yeah.
not what I was going for.
I
So it's much more interesting. Go ahead.
unless you want, desaturated and dirty effects, I mean, that's perfect for that. And it's great for washing on metals, like steel and stuff. But if you're looking for a really saturated red or green or some bright blue or something, and then you wash the Nuln Oil over it, it's just going to desaturate it and you'll be sad. There are
Right.
there are
Yeah.
other alternatives.
Well, and it's just so much. I've watched a few many videos recently about making chromatic blacks instead, and that making blacks from mixing colors together, and
Oh,
the
I
results are
always do
so much.
that.
Yeah.
I don't even own black.
Mhm. So can you talk a little bit about chromatic black then in your process to
I
getting
didn't
black? I
even
think that would be helpful.
I didn't even know that that's what it was called. That's what people call it.
Hmm.
I have no idea. I just know that back in high school, when I took a painting class, my art teacher would not let us use black. He gave us, this whole other palette of colors. We had our cadmium red, we had our, cadmium orange, we had cadmium yellow, we had phthalo green, phthalo blue, I don't know, some other colors. But anyways, my favorite for making a dark color that's not quite black is using phthalo green and cadmium red. And what I have found in miniature paints is Reaper Miniatures makes the clear paints, which are kind of pretty much just like artist acrylics, only as miniature paints. They're
Hmm.
kind of those same pigments that I was using, back in my high school painting class. They have a phthalo green and they have a red. And when I mix those two together, they act just like my cadmium red and phthalo green artist acrylics. So they make that really nice dark color. And if you add a little more of the green, then it becomes a little cooler, and you get a little bit more of a greenish tone to it. If you add a little bit more red, it's all of a sudden it's a little warmer. And now it's more of a really dark maroon or a dark reddish brown color, but just right on the cusp of being black. And when you build up the opacity of it, it gets darker. That's my
And it's
favorite.
so much more visually interesting, so much more visually interesting than just a flat black.
I feel like it is too.
You know, that's a great recipe though, like of using that. I mean, you've basically
There,
summed up the whole process of color theory. You know, red and green together, complementary colors. Boom.
there are other ways to do it, but that is my favorite. Uh, you can go phthalo blue mixed with magenta
That's
and
true
get
too.
a
That's
nice
a nice
dark
one.
color that way too. It'd be more of a purpley color. But yeah, it does take some experimentation, I'm going to tell you. It it takes some experimentation to kind of get your ratios. I just eyeball it. Don't even People ask for measurements and I'm like, I have no clue.
Yeah, it's hard, you know, it's kind of it's an interesting conflict in situations. You know, there are a lot of artists who won't give recipes, just say color in the area of color, but when somebody's new and starting out and watching their video, they're kind of reliant on, you know, the wait, is that Vallejo's ice yellow or is that this color from Reaper, et cetera, because they just don't know enough yet. And so there's always kind of that struggle. And I understand, like, when you're painting, you're eyeballing it, you're looking at the tones of the figure in front of you and where you want to go. And so, yeah, I mean, I totally get it that it's hard to give an exact ratio, and not even just that, it's also
And
paints.
I will hold my palette up to the camera. I was doing that just today. Uh, Somebody in the chat was asking about skin tones because she's new to the hobby and she doesn't yet have a skin tone paint. And she wanted a skin tone that was like her skin. And so I held the palette up and I said, these are I like to start out with some red, some magenta, some yellow, uh, a little bit of green. In this case, you're going to put some white in it because we want it to be really light. If you want a darker tone, maybe leave the white out and maybe put a little more of the red green in because red with a little green in it, you're going to get a browner color, a darker color. And then maybe you add a little bit of yellow to it and you get a lighter brown color. So those colors by themselves, you can make a ton of different skin colors with those colors.
Yeah, well, a class I took with Roman LaPlante was one of the things we had to do is we had 5 colors and we had to make our own. We had the primaries and then black and white, and we had to make our own skin tone. And so, like, so me and my podcast host also took the class as well, and we're sitting there like, wait, is that my color? You know, it was a great exercise and kind of in seeing all the different colors that go into makeup. Actually, what skin tone color is not just peach, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you
Um,
don't have peach, then you kind of need to fool around with your red, your yellow, your magenta, your white. They will all make peach for you if peach is the color that you were looking for.
Very true. Very true. Very true. So, in that line of talking about colors, are there now you had mentioned the Reaper clears, but are there any other paints that kind of seem to constantly make their way onto your models? Like my example is Deck Tan from Vallejo. I kind of use that makes it somehow, even if I don't bring it with me, somehow it reappears like a Ouija board in my painter's kit. You know.
I The more that I've been painting with the Reaper clear paints, let's see. I have this the phthalo blue and green, red, orange, yellow, magenta, regular green, regular blue, purple. I think there's 9 colors. So there's 9 of the clear paints. And between those and white, that's mostly all I use these days. Oh, I do have Vallejo Game Color Verdigris, and I love it. I could make that color easily using the Reaper Clears and white. It's a really light greenish color.
Mm-hmm.
But since I have a bottle of this, I will continue to use it until it's gone.
Right. You've got it. Why not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, are there models out there that have not been done that you would like to see made? Like I always give the example of I would like to see the the Dark Tower characters from Stephen King's series kind of come to life in miniature form. Is there anything out there that hasn't been made yet that you'd like to see?
Geez, to be honest, I can't think of anything. It's not something I've really thought about much. There's so many models out there that I have or that I want that I don't even think about the ones that don't exist yet.
No, that's fair. So what's a model out there that you want to get that you don't have?
Oh, the giant Cthulhu one from Coleman You're Not.
That is a monstrosity. It's not.
Oh,
It's huge.
I saw it at Gen Con,
Oh wow.
and
And it's I can't imagine trying to tackle painting that.
yeah, oh, I can. That's why I want it. I think it would be so much fun. I'm a big Lovecraft fan, so and that's another reason why I like Nurgle stuff because it kind of borders on the Lovecraftian.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, well, kind of makes sense that, if you want that Cthulhu, I would hope that you had a somewhat of a thing for Lovecraft. Because that's, and it's interesting to hear you say that too. Now, if you were to get that model, would you approach, like, that model's got airbrush written all over it to me. Well, it would look like to prime that, you might have to break out like a house painting brush or something.
I would certainly start with priming it with a larger brush. I have a bunch of brushes from back in the day when I was painting 2D art, and they're much bigger than the ones I use for miniatures, as you can imagine.
Right. Right, for sure. It seemed to be a lot of fun. So, one of the things that we always ask our guests is the motto of our podcast is better, braver, happier. Is there any advice that you could give our listeners in kind of pursuit of that goal?
Better, braver, happier. I would have to say, don't let the fear of making a mistake paralyze you. Don't let that fear just stop you from diving in and painting the model. I know it's easy to say because I've been at that point where I just don't want to paint it because I'm too trepidatious. I feel like I'll screw it. That's how I used to feel, you know, years ago. But I've learned since then that I'm going to make a mistake on every model I paint. I'm going to make at least one mistake. I just will. And once you accept the fact that you're going to be making mistakes on all your models, uh, it's less surprising when it happens. And then you realize that you can fix your mistakes. Any mistake you make can be fixed. You don't need to strip the model. Oh, it breaks my heart when people, their go-to when they get a skin tone wrong or something is strip the model. That's a waste of time. It's a pain in the butt. And it's needless. It's not necessary. Unless you've really caked on the paint and it's an inch thick. If you used a spackling knife to apply your paint, maybe.
Hey, wait, have you seen me paint? No, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I know it's frustrating when you mess up. It is. And you swear and you stomp around and your hands shake so put the model down, take a deep breath. You know what? Maybe come back to it the next day. I'm painting the Suzerain of Desire right now, a creature caster model. Also, it's called the Twins. It has two names. I don't know why. Um, I think Suzerain of Desire is more poetic than the Twins. Uh, Anyways, so I finished the skin on the male part of this model, and I loved it, and I felt like it turned out perfectly. And then I went on to paint the skin on the female portion, which is a different color. And the next day I turned it over and I realized that some of my paint got on my thumb and transferred across the chest of the skin I already had finished. And yeah, I swore. Yeah, I was upset. And the next day, when I was more calm, I went and I fixed it. That's that's all you can do. It's going to take a little time, but you can fix it. You, you you know, don't worry about making mistakes. You will make mistakes and it will be frustrating, and you just fix them. And it's fine. It will all be fine.
Well, thank you so very much for taking the time to chat with us and to share your painting journey with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it. And I love that the model is better, braver, happier, because painting braver that's the way that you learn.